Regular meeting of the Painesville City Board of Education for Monday, February 10th is now called to order. Mrs. Hayman?
Mrs. Briggs?
Yes. Here.
Dr. Humphreys?
Here.
Ms. Powers-Dolny?
Here.
Mr. Tackett?
Here.
Mr. Webster?
Present.
And if we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We need a motion to adopt this evening's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I'd like to make an amendment
Okay,
to add a discussion topic under new business
okay,
for superintendent and treasurer evaluation forms.
okay.
Thank you. I guess I'm moving to make an amendment, and if somebody would second it, please. Second?
Okay. So we are voting on the amended agenda.
Yes. Ms. Briggs?
Yes.
Dr. Humphreys?
Yes.
Mr. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes.
Ms. Powers-Dolny?
Yes. Okay, Mrs. Briggs, do we have, or Mr. Chotsey, do we have anybody that signed in back there to speak?
They're over
Here.
here.
Or are they? There's one? Okay, thank you. Okay, item 3.1, we need a motion to approve the minutes of the organizational meeting for January 13th.
So moved.
Any questions or comments? Mrs. Hayman?
Dr. Humphreys?
Yes. Wait. No. Strike that. I don't see where I was pressing.
For the organizational meeting?
Yes, for the organization.
Yeah, so
Came
you
in-
did miss it.
Yeah.
You came in late,
Yes.
Yes.
but you were here.
Because you were here.
But not for the organizational meeting.
You came in late,
You
because I
came in
swore
late.
you were
came in
here.
at
You were
6:30,
sworn- you were
so-
sworn in.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You're good. I wasn't on the minute, so.
Hard to get,
It's hard to get good help, isn't it, Mr. Webster?
hard to get here from downtown.
Oh, I'm
Working
sure.
hard.
I'm sure.
Down.
So do you want to vote yes?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes.
Ms. Briggs?
Yes.
Ms. Powers-Dolny?
Yes. Item 3.2, we need an approval of minutes of the regular meeting for January 13th.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion here?
Mr. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes.
Ms. Briggs?
Yes.
Dr. Humphreys?
Yes.
Ms. Powers-Dolny?
Yes. Dr. Engelhardt?
Yes. Good evening, everybody. As part of our ongoing student recognition program, we, on a regular basis, weekly is what we try, we honor a student in the district for excellent writing. And we're fortunate tonight to have several what we call WOW readers, Writer of the Week winners, who we asked them to come to our board meeting and share the piece for which they were nominated with the board and with the wider audience. So I will ask Ms. Fife to facilitate that.
Good evening. Can I first have Mariah up? Mariah was nominated for WOW from her language arts teacher, Mrs. Naughton. Submitted her essay because Mariah is an amazing student with a knack for tackling a difficult subject and making it understandable. Her knowledge level of many topics goes above and beyond the typical sixth grade student, and it is evident in all of her writings. She puts forth extra work on every assignment and pulls in prior knowledge to educate her peers. I enjoy reading every essay that Mariah writes. So Mariah's going to share the essay that she wrote, just a segment of the essay that she wrote on Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry.
You can, yeah.
Do you want her over here? You want her over here so you can?
The book Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry by Mildred Taylor and the poem We Wear the Mask by Paul Laurence Dunbar both express the idea that African Americans were subject to oppression in the post-Civil War era. In the poem We Wear the Mask, it is talking about how African Americans did not stand up to the discrimination they were receiving and fear that they would be punished. In Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, a girl named Cassie Logan and her siblings are put through prejudice such as being given worse condition books than whites in school. Cassie and her siblings are unfortunate victims of racism, much like the subject of the poem. In the post-Civil War era, African Americans were heavily looked down upon. This made a lot of them very miserable and depressed. If they tried to show their feelings, they felt that they could be looked at as even weaker than they already seemed. Some evidence is, we wear the mask that grins and lies. We smile, but oh great Christ, our cries. We constantly found ourselves comical objects to cruel eyes that gave no thought to our misery. We suggest that African Americans were suffering from misery and depression, from being discriminated and put down for so long just because of the color of their skin.
I will say that this was, they had to read the whole book, Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, but then they also had to use 2 other pieces of evidence to bring it all in together. So it wasn't just reading the book and writing about it, it was reading the book, reading an article, and also reading an excerpt from a larger book. So it was really well, that was well done. The whole essay is wonderful, nicely done. Yeah. All right, the next one up is Micah Cannon. Micah was also, he actually was supposed to be here a couple weeks ago, was sick, so he's gonna do his today too. So his is from language arts from Mrs. Naughton also. Submitted his essay because Micah was able to take several of the readings, a novel, a poem, and several nonfiction articles, and combine them to make a very well-written essay. He used specific textual examples and paraphrasing to show his understanding of the post-Civil War and oppression of the African Americans. His writing and understanding has also led to many unique conversations in my class as we continue to read Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry by Mildred Taylor. So Micah's going to read an excerpt of his also.
African Americans were very oppressed during the post-Civil War era. Both the novel Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry by Mildred D. Taylor and the poem We Wear the Mask by Paul Laurence Dunbar show this dreadful racist time. African Americans were being discriminated by white people who thought that African Americans were different because of their skin color. White people were forming clans such as KKK. They were not giving them full rights such as sharecropping and many more. Both Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, and We Wear the Mask show these terrible things. We smile, but oh great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise, writes Paul Dunbar in the poem We Wear the Mask. Black people were being tortured, not really by whipping and beatings anymore, but for racial violence. After slavery was abolished, former slaves didn't know how to be free and couldn't get a job. This left a lot of people working too far for their original owners. This was called sharecropping, and the workers were paid and the things they farmed were made. Oftentimes they didn't get paid enough. Even though they weren't getting tortured anymore, black people were still being treated unfairly. Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry has this idea in its inner pages.
All right, we have one more this evening. We're going to switch grades and we're going to go to 2nd grade. So this is Jazette. All right, Mrs. Johnson submitted her opinion writing piece, I Wanna, because she went above and beyond the expectations of the typical 2nd grade writing. In a letter to her mom and dad, Gisette gave multiple reasons for why a bearded dragon would be a great pet. As you read her letter, it is as if she is talking directly to you. She asks questions to grab your attention, makes witty comments, and even signs off as your favorite daughter. Gisette's piece was fun to read and very persuasive. So she's going to read her I Wanna, and it's a bearded dragon. All right, let's see here.
I want to be a dragon. Dear Mom and Dad, do you want to know the best pet? I do. It's a bearded dragon. I will feed it lettuce. I will also take it a bath with warm water. If you would say yes, I will feel joyful. I will warm him out.
Take your time, take your time.
Feel joyful. I will take him outside to play a food game. Do you want to know more? If it will make a mess, I will clean his cage. Another reason is I will turn its light off at night. Especially, I will take him out of his cage. Also, I will take it for a walk. Also, I will buy him a leash, and I will take him for a walk. Please, I will decorate his cage for the holidays. Please get me a new dragon because I will be the one taking care of it. Trust me, your favorite dog is
So do you want to ask the question?
Now, Dr. Engelhardt at this point usually says, we couldn't have done that when we were in 6th grade, and we definitely could not have done that in 2nd grade.
I don't know, does she have a bearded dragon already?
That's right.
You already have one, okay.
Drago.
So Mariah, Micah, and Gisette, we're very proud of all three of you.
Excellent work, just excellent work. Not just well written, but well presented.
Yes.
And, we're really proud of the work you're doing, and keep it up. We also, at this point, usually tell our guests that while you're more than welcome to stay for the entire business portion of the meeting, that's not necessarily expected.
And what's the
Yeah, it's a little tedious.
Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Thank you all for
Thank
coming.
you.
Our students.
It's fun to watch the parents' faces while they're reading.
They should be proud of their graduates. I like the brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Turbo.
Yep. Okay, our next regular meeting is March 9th, and Mr. Tackett, is this where you wanted to,
Yeah, sorry, I know I'm raising this out of the blue, but last year, I had gone to that seminar down in Columbus about developing proper evaluation forms, and we had talked about wanting to do something, and I kind of just let that ball drop and roll away. And I'd like to pick that back up and having the SAMAX evaluation, that we're dealing with right now kind of brought it to the forefront. It's like if we're going to deal with it, we need to do it now so that we can prepare for beginning the process in the fall. So originally Mr. Webster had agreed to work with me on that. I don't know if he's still interested or if somebody else is interested. I'd certainly welcome any support in that.
Is there a committee that would be appropriate to take that on, to kind of, as part of their work?
Not really.
no, it doesn't fall under any category.
It doesn't really, huh?
And it would really just be a 1 or 2 meeting thing.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be an ongoing.
Okay.
specific to HR now.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, Tim, isn't that?
Well, I mean, the idea isn't for us to figure it out. It's, we'll
I'd be
present
great.
something and then we
Sure, I'd love
we
to
can
review
bounce it
it.
off each other and make comments
Yeah.
and then finalize it.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to help.
And it's gonna obviously involve Mr. Engelhardt, or Dr. Engelhardt and Mrs. Samek, so,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to work with them once we get up to a certain point. But that was an important thing, I think, because I know we've all expressed frustration in how our evaluation system works, and we need to make it better, so, anyway, I just wanted to bring that
I
up.
think that from, being my first time even seeing the form, yeah, I could definitely use some improvements. Yeah, so totally behind helping with that.
Cool.
Okay, so Mr. Tackett, it will be you and Dr. James Humphreys, and then you'll run it by all of us? Is that what
Yes.
we're, okay.
Yeah, we'll start putting some stuff together. I'll pull out my notes and send it to everybody from that seminar. And OSBA has, or DOE has a kind of evaluation framework also, so we'll probably look at that and pick and choose and figure out how, what's going to work best for us.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Now it's the rock star.
Yes. So, Mr. Webster, it's your moment of glory.
So I may need some help with this, because I don't entirely understand this first one, but I think I've got a handle on it, and I did a little work. So here's our legislative report, and I think this is an important one, and Dr. James Humphreys asked about it. I don't know if I can answer all of her questions, but I'm hoping you might have some more knowledge that you can put on. So the House passed Senate Bill 89 by a vote of 88-7. So this bill revises the Educational Choice Scholarship Program and dissolves the 3 academic distress commissions and repeals the school district territory transfer law from the state budget bill. The bill returns to the Senate for a concurrence vote. So it was initiated in the Senate, where the Senate is expected to refuse to concur with the House's changes. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a conference committee that will need to be convened to reconcile the differences between the 2 houses in the legislature, and to reconcile those and come up with a bit of a solution. And so I pulled up because I think this is a big one. I've got some other stuff to cover, but I want to talk about this a little bit more. And so I'd like to read this bit to you that was sent to school board members by OSBA about this decision, and it helped me a little bit to start to understand. So it says, yesterday the House passed the Senate Bill 88-7. Before passage, the House Primary and Secondary Education Committee added several amendments to Senate Bill 89. Among them was an amendment to make changes to the Ed Choice Voucher Program. Before voting on the bill, the House added another amendment to address Ohio's Academic Distress Commission laws, ADC laws. The bill now returns to the Senate, as I mentioned before. I'm going to go through that. So it's going to end awarding of new performance-based vouchers, with some exceptions like allowing new vouchers for siblings of current voucher students. It's going to allow school-age siblings of students currently receiving performance-based vouchers to also receive district-paid vouchers, regardless of whether the sibling was in a public or private school or was homeschooled. It's going to rename the state-paid income-based expansion program to the Buckeye Opportunity Scholarship Program. It's going to increase the income eligibility threshold from 200% to 250% of the federal poverty level, with priority given to previous recipients and their siblings, and then to the lowest income students, and provide that students currently receiving performance-based voucher will continue to receive their voucher through their senior year. Would require, beginning in fiscal year 2022, that the state to pay the voucher amount for the student who is eligible for both the performance-based voucher and an income-based income-based voucher. And it would maintain the current appropriation at $121 million for income-based vouchers for fiscal year 2021. It would set a 60-day application window. As I mentioned, it would dissolve the 3 academic distress commissions that are currently in effect for the cities of Youngstown City School District, East Cleveland City School District, and Lorraine City School District, effective June 30th, 2020, along with creating a state-level school transformation board to oversee school improvement efforts and establishing a moratorium on new academic distress commissions until 2024. It would repeal the territory transfer provision that was passed in the budget bill, House Bill 166, effective on September 1st, 2020. Not quite sure what that's about. Would require ODE to perform studies in special education costs and the cost of educating English learners, which certainly affects us, which are due on December 31st, 2021. Bill also revises the economically disadvantaged student cost study from House Bill 166 and delays its deadline to December 31st instead of 2020. December 31st, 2021 instead of 2020. And then finally, it would establish a joint House and Senate committee on testing, test score ranges, and report card measures, and require a report by October 1st, 2020. I just found it interesting, so I went on to the OSBA site and looked at our district and our district students. Currently, what I found is that we have a total, and these obviously aren't going to be a surprise to you, Dr. Gouillard. We have 2,619, and this is from their report. It may not be current, right, because we're a little behind. 2,619 students enrolled in our district. We had a total of 139 students who participated in the Ed Choice Scholarship or Cleveland Scholarship program. And then 4 students participated in the Ed Choice Expansion program, which I found interesting. Of our 2,600 students, we still have 254 enrolled in another district through open enrollment and 72 enrolled in another public district by means other than open enrollment. And then we've got, about 50 in an online community school, 52 in the online community school, 56 in a site-based community school. So those are some of the facts around that. Does anybody have any questions about that? I find it confusing, but I think I understand this, and maybe you could speak to it a little bit. What we're talking about here is the vouchers, because we've been what the state views as an underperforming district, correct? Students are allowed to receive monies from the state to attend a private school, basically, and we've seen some of that going to Lake Catholic. So it sounds like this bill, as the House has amended it, is going to restrict that.
So we've been getting ravaged by school choice for as long as school choice has been around.
Mm-hmm.
What happened was the Ed Choice program rapidly, massively expanded like that through some legislation that kind of rode in behind some other legislation without people really understanding what the implications were or what was going to happen. But what happened was that it tripled the number of schools eligible for Ed Choice. It ended up including schools in districts like Solon, Kirtland, Mentor. Somewhere around 70% of districts in the state now, under the new rules, have an Ed Choice school. Now, like I said, we've been getting raped on Ed Choice for all these years. Now it's an outrage because these suburban middle and upper middle class districts, now it's come to their door.
Because they're losing a bunch of money.
Well, and what they did is they attached the program to, guess what, arbitrary report card measures. And those arbitrary measures, nobody hits them, and so they become eligible for the scholarship. It's an intentional legislative effort to expand choice and reduce public. this whole thing, while the world has been on fire for all of our neighbors, hasn't really affected us at all, because we're already so deep into, you can expand to 300% poverty level, it ain't gonna make any difference to us, because so many of our families qualify at 100%, you know? So we're already there. So this happened, and the application period under these new rules was supposed to be February 1st. So whenever people started, when the canary in the mine started to indicate that, whoa, this is what's gonna happen, people started speaking up, people started getting active, and then there's this mass scramble by the legislature to say, oh no, this application date is coming up, and we already know this is a broken system. So they've been scurrying to try to find some legislative remedies. They delayed the application period, so those applications did not start February 1st. I believe they're starting April 1st.
Okay.
In theory,
yeah.
yeah, there's a group that's suing the state
There's
Yeah.
that too.
over that
Yeah.
We saw
delay,
that.
that it may not happen, so.
But the other pieces that would impact us, well, maybe, but they're clearly not the intent of the school choice program, is they were going to begin providing vouchers to students who never set foot in the public school. They were going to start providing taxpayer vouchers to families who have been already paying private school tuition by choice. So they were going to just start raiding the public tax dollars and sending them to these private schools. So they're trying to find this remedy. The House dialed back a lot of the big pieces. They wanted to get the qualifying threshold for the income-based back to 200%. They ended up settling at 250%. And they're getting rid of the performance-based vouchers to dial it back to just income-based again. But this still, as you reported, still has to be reconciled with the Senate. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that they're starting hearings tomorrow. So I believe that committee is starting tomorrow. So we have to wait and see what comes out of this. At the end of the day, the difference to us is not substantial. But in the interest of public education, it's a really, really big deal.
Okay. That's very helpful. I appreciate that, because I was trying to get my hands around this. I was also curious about the eliminations of that they had planned of the committees, the distress committees.
So the Academic Distress Commission, it's been around long enough to see that it's not an effective structure.
Mm-hmm.
Those communities have really been, in particular Lorraine and Youngstown, have really been torn apart. So there's an appetite for moving away from that. Now, there have been some efforts to legislate that. I think that this was just seen as a good opportunity to include that and say, all right, in one fell swoop, we're going to dissolve that and start to implement these other structures. There are replacement structures that are proposed for the academic distress commissions, which I think make a lot more sense. Still overly punitive, but it's not state takeover in the same model as ADC.
Okay.
So it again, it would be good for public education if we see that structure go away in that effort.
Anybody have any, not to lead, but what questions? Things I haven't thought about.
So, when it was mostly the poorer districts, the underperforming districts, nobody cared. And based on what Mr. Webster is saying, it's still performance-based and income-based. So why is that currently affecting the Solons, the Menners, and the Kirtlands
Well,
of the world?
it points to the ridiculousness of some of the items on the report card, because it's those
Okay.
same measures. Those
But
what
they're not
saying is-
underperforming districts.
But
No,
by
but
these
it's
But
by,
definitions-
it's by
individual
building.
schools.
Yes.
It's individual
Yeah.
buildings.
Yes.
So that was one thing as I looked through it. While Riverside High School isn't underperforming, you can get this voucher for several different Riverside elementary schools
Yeah.
at this point. Madison as well. So these are,
It's virtually everyone.
yeah.
Like I said, Kirtland has a school.
I mean, it basically bumped the number of schools up to about one out of every 3 in the state.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically as effect of potentially
So we
really
have been
damaging public
losing
education.
with,
Well, it was an accident in terms of the number of schools that became affected. That was purely accidental by, as Mr. Webster was saying, this kind of prior legislation that they didn't understand the unintended consequences. But it all goes to, the abstract report card structure that doesn't relate to what's really happening in the buildings.
so, Mr. Webster, you said 139 of our kids are in this Ed Choice program and another 254 are open enrolled. I mean, we've been losing kids to open enrollment for years, so that, I mean, what are we talking about, $250,000 every year, roughly?
Well, I mean, it's a building's worth of kids.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
at, the foundation payment is currently 5,000.
400 kids.
It's like $6,000 per kid.
So roughly
400.
$6,000 per
Okay.
student.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
significant. Now, what I can say sadly is it's not unusual for an urban type
Yep,
district.
yep.
It's what the system is set up to do. But, yeah, if we can stem the tide of outflow, it would make a big difference.
Okay.
One thing I will say, not all of those students are going because of some perceived failure of our district. There are, I know we get a neighbor who, despite our trying to talk her out of it, she sent her daughters to Lake Catholic because she went to Lake Catholic.
Sure.
And, there was some tradition there, or family tradition, that kind of stuff happens. Certainly there are people who send their kids to religious schools for religious reasons,
Sure.
not simply because of
And we also have a significant number of kids who are court-placed in other
Is
areas
that
throughout the state.
72 number?
I believe that's, I don't
That
know if it
seems-
would it be that high?
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. You have any more questions about Senate Bill 89?
Thank you.
Much as we know, yeah.
They emailed you about that.
I'm sorry, yeah, it was, and I started to look into it, and I'm like, wow, what do all these words mean? I mean, because it's kind of confusing, so I really
That's why I
appreciate
asked you
Dr.
about it.
Yeah, okay, let me tell you a few other things. So the Senate passed Senate Bill 134, it passed unanimously. This bill is gonna increase the penalties for the offense of improperly passing a stopped school bus and allows images captured by school bus cameras to be used as corroborating evidence. And it also appropriates $500,000 for fiscal years 2020 and 2021 for purchasing and installing cameras on school buses. So that bill is gonna go to the House. The Education Committee is looking at House Bill 123. It's its 4th hearing. It requires public schools to implement programs on and provide instruction in suicide awareness and prevention and violence prevention. So the amendment permits ESCs to qualify for school safety training grants. So that's probably pretty good for us and others. Committee also passed Senate Bill 34, which revises school employment policies and revises procedures regarding education licensure. There's in the Ways and Means Committee, a substitute version of Senate Bill 212 is in its 4th hearing. The bill provides a full or partial tax exemption to developers and owners of newly constructed homes within specified areas during the construction period. So I don't know if that affects us or not, because it doesn't really, should have read what that kind of meant. There was another one that I was interested in that was about, what was the one about? Oh, this was it. In the Health Committee, the committee held a 2nd hearing on House Bill 436, which requires professional development for screening and intervention for children with dyslexia, and requires school districts to establish structured literacy certification procedures, and requires districts to employ specified ratios for structured literacy certified teachers. That same committee also held a hearing on House Bill 243, which will require that all health benefit plans, including those provided by school districts, provide coverage for the full cost of up to $2,500 of a hearing aid for each hearing impaired ear every 48 months for a covered person under 22 years of age. So that will help her. So that's kind of what I got for you today. I think Senate Bill 89 is, stay tuned and maybe call your senator to let him know what you think. You go, right?
Thank you,
Still
Mr.
you go.
Webster.
You're welcome. Sorry to take so much time, there's a lot of stuff there.
Okay, moving on to the treasurer's consent agenda, we need a motion here, please.
So moved to adopt.
Mrs. Seaman?
Okay, 7.1 are donations that were presented to the district over the past month. 7.2 is the annual transfer, for the, it comes from the permanent improvement fund and it goes to our building maintenance fund. I kind of wrote about it in my email about it was established when the construction started. So it's just an oddball amount, but that's what they picked. So, that's the annual transfer to support that fund. 7.3 is to amend my appropriations, so, we got a couple new grants. One, we got like a freezer over at Elm, a couple oddball things that we didn't have at the beginning of the year, so I had to increase my appropriations, and then also some of our, federal grants decreased slightly, nothing like crazy, but, so this is just basically to make things more accurate. So once those get approved, I'll submit them to the county auditor and, update my appropriations and my resources with the county. So those are my 3 items. Any questions? Mr. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes.
Ms. Briggs?
Yes.
Dr. Humphries?
Yes.
Ms. Barber Dolman?
Yes.
Okay, then 8.1 through 8.5 are the reports that were for the month of January.
Any questions or comments here? Okay, moving on to item 9, we need a motion for the superintendent's consent agenda, please.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, 9.1, we have an agreement with OHSAA for 2020-2021. 9.2, we have College Credit Plus agreements with Kent State and Lakeland. 9.3 is tuition costs to Orange City Schools. And 9.4 is tuition costs to Ashtabula City Schools.
Any questions or comments here?
Just curious how the tuition cost to Ashtabula says tuition excess cost. What's the excess in that, do you know?
So those students are like above and beyond. So like in a perfect world, a kid is $6,000. So these students that have a disability cost more. So then this is a type of thing that we interact with other school districts. So it may be something that we're sending a kid there because they have a program, whatever the case would be. So then they're billing us for the excess to educate that kid because it's above and beyond the typical cost.
Okay.
But they may need an extra aid or something like that.
In these cases, these are court place kids.
Yes.
They're court
Got it.
placed,
They're court placed.
but we get an additional sum from the state for that kid, right? So
Correct.
we're transferring part of that or all of it
Right.
to them.
So
Okay.
once a year, we go through, we claim each kid by identification number. And then we'll sit there and depending on, you know, if we're educating the student or if somebody else is educating the student and the cost associated with that kid, we break it down. And then we submit all that to the state, and then we, on average, maybe get like 20 to 25% of that money back. But we go through and depending on who has the kid and who's claiming the kid through EMIS and all that kind of stuff,
Sure.
factors all that into it.
Okay.
Okay.
You ready?
Cool.
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Webster?
Yes.
Mrs. Briggs?
Yes.
Dr. Humphries?
Yes.
Mr. Tackett?
Yes.
Ms. Parzoni?
Yes. Item 10?
Item 10, we have non-action items. 10.1 is first reading of policy. This was the policy regarding depositing of public funds. And 10.2 is our bullying report for the semester that we're required to make public.
How's our trending in the bullying report?
I can speak from last year to this year. It's pretty. It's very similar.
Flat.
Yeah, it's flat.
Is there any sort of reason or that we found about why it jumps up in grade 4?
I did look into that because that did stand out. In this case, it really comes down to one particular student who's been involved in multiple situations.
Now, when we look at this and number of incidents, are we talking about the number of incidents that somebody bullied or somebody got bullied? Does that make sense?
Yeah, this would be based on disciplinary action taken.
Okay,
So
understood.
it's the number of times that a disciplinary action was coded for bullying.
Got it.
So what do we say to the cynics that will look at this and say, there's no way there was only 21 incidents of bullying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we can speak very directly to that, and the answer is that what we, in common language, what we call bullying is not bullying. A kid being mean to another kid is not necessarily bullying, right? But it's part of our common lexicon now, that whenever, you know, somebody is maltreated, it's bullying. And look, there are kids, unfortunately, every day there are kids who are mean to other kids, right? And it doesn't mean that that's okay, and it doesn't mean that we don't intervene with that. We do, but it's not necessarily bullying. Bullying is very specifically, it's an ongoing harassment or intimidation in which there is an imbalance of power that's exercised.
Mhm.
So it means something specific. So that's the answer.
What about the 6th grade with 6 there, and then we've only got 1 7th grade, 1 8th grade? Is this related to, yet again, a specific student, or?
I can't, I'm not exactly certain. I know that it's not one kid. Sometimes we have an incident where there are multiple kids involved, which accounts for more than one count for an incident. I don't know necessarily that that's the case here. I think that it's, our general pattern is we, you know, 6th grade is a tough,
Yeah.
it's a tough spot. It's that transition. It's that time at which we take kids from 3 different elementaries and we put them all together. And
Is there a
so
gender trend within this?
I don't know that.
Okay.
Yeah. That's information that I can get.
Okay.
So this first reading on this finances policy is the deposit of public funds is one that Sharon and I have talked about numerous times because it's always, you know, is there any, what do they call it, fraud? They're not calling it a fraud thing, it's, when we have to do the,
Oh, it is.
it is the fraud alert?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the concern is always when it's cash that's being collected, is it properly being deposited? So, but we don't really have, we haven't really had concerns about that at all, have we?
No. I mean, overall, they do a really good job of getting the deposits done, but the law allows you 3 days, and our policy currently says 1. So it
Yes.
gives us a little more flexibility to
Okay.
make sure that we're within our policy. So if they were to come across one that, you know, was there a lag, we wouldn't get, you know, nagged. for
Okay.
it.
Okay.
And it doesn't change our cash handling process at all,
No.
which we upgraded dramatically, I don't know, what, 6, 7, 8 years ago?
Yes.
After some
Food service.
incidents.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um,
So it doesn't change the procedures, nothing, but like say you were to collect something on a Friday and you're in a hurry, get your weekend started, whatever the case may be, you miss curry or whatever, it doesn't go to the bank until Monday, audit could sit there and say, you know, like, why, you know, if it was written on Friday, it should have went to the bank on Friday, or, you know, there's things that happen, they didn't
Sure.
get it down to the option like that. So by changing this to 3 days, it would allow that we're within our policy, which is within the law. So
Mhm.
it gives us a little more flexibility, so they have less to come back at me for.
And that's just for deposits less than $1,000.
Correct.
Yes. Mhm. Which is pretty much the bulk of our deposits, so.
Have we had anything come up that calls into question whether our actual cash handling policies need to be reviewed again, or?
No, I mean, audit's pretty much done, and they really couldn't come back with much of anything. The deposits are, we have Joe Mutroni, who does courier, so he goes to all the buildings and collects all the deposits and runs the bank for us. So every day, we're making a deposit every day, and each person that is making a deposit is responsible for sealing their bag, and the bags are tamper-proof, so there's no way that you can put any, you know, like you can't take anyone in a bag without like destroying
Once it's
the
sealed,
title.
right, it's obvious
sealed.
that if it's
I mean,
tampered with.
you cannot break through these things, so, you know, who's ever doing that deposit, when they put it in, it's their blood, sweat, and tears go into that bag. So the only thing that we ever get is that if they add it wrong. So we'll get a notification from the bank saying, you know, you made a deposit of $100, but there was actually $110 in cash, or, you know, vice versa. And then we just go back to the person who made the deposit and said, the bank put it back with this, and, you know, it's usually just a simple math error.
I mean, do we have, like when we're counting cash and putting it in the deposit bags or whatever, I don't remember what the actual procedure is. Does there have to be at least 2 people involved with that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I should read the administrative guidelines before asking the silly questions like that.
Okay, item 11, personnel, we need a motion here, please.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
11.1 is employment, 11.2 is retirement, 11.3 is resignation, 11.4 is change of assignment, 11.5 is leaves, 11.6 is stipends, 11.7 is class size reimbursement, 11.8 is certified substitutes, 11.9 is classified substitutes, 11.10 is classified substitute rate of pay, and 11.11 is supplemental pupil activity.
Any questions or comments here?
So what's the difference between administrative leave versus just a leave without pay?
There are, a leave without pay, a special leave without pay is by request. So it's either in an instance when an employee is asking for leave for which personnel or sick does not apply, or in some cases we have employees who have exhausted all their sick time, and that's their only option.
Mrs. Briggs?
Yes.
Dr. Humphries?
Yes.
Mr. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes.
Ms. Powers Dolny?
Yes. Professional visits, we need a motion here, please.
So moved.
Second.
12.1 is professional visits paid out of the general fund, and 12.2 is professional visits paid by grant funds.
Good.
No questions or comments?
Dr. Humphries?
Yes.
Mr. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Webster?
Yes.
Mrs. Briggs?
Yes.
Ms. Powers Dolny?
Yes. Mrs. Briggs, did anyone sign in to speak at this item on the agenda?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item 14, recognizing positive moments and/or events.
We're CBC champions.
Yes, we are CBC champions in boys basketball. Yes.
Well,
That was
I
an
believe-
exciting game.
Yes, it was.
Were we CB champions in boys middle school basketball at the last meeting, or is that new for this? I believe that's new too, isn't it? Did we discuss that last time? 'Cause I think the middle school boys are also the
I think
regular
you're right.
season champions
I
in
I
basketball.
think you're right.
So,
Just winning all around.
Yeah,
there was a lot of good,
Yeah.
Go Raiders.
Friday night was really a moment. I mean, I
Oh.
think it was really an indication of the momentum and the movement of the community. It does show the importance of having a central thing to rally around. And it felt like all of Painesville was in that gym on
Yeah.
Friday night. Coach Woj was able to get some donors to provide T-shirts, and there was a T-shirt giveaway, and so the whole crowd was wearing white T-shirts, and they were loud and into the game and in a respectful way.
Yep.
The boys competed masterfully as they have all season, and it was just a really, really great.
was exciting,
It was a really
very
special
exciting.
moment. It was really
Yep.
great.
The
And,
students rushing the court at the end was just amazing. It was amazing.
it's gonna be good high school memories.
So there's still a lot of winning left to do.
Yeah.
Right? We still have the Riverside game coming up, and
Two
and
more
of
home
course-
games too.
Yeah, we still are at home a couple more times, and of course, then we have the tournament. We are, I think, third seed, behind like Menor and Brush, and so we're right there in the thick of things as far as the tournament goes, so that's very exciting. We've also had our Sparkle cheerleaders, they've performed at 2 games, I believe, so far. They've played, they were just here again at the girls' game on Saturday. So that's really an outstanding program.
Yeah, I saw Facebook, they were
Yeah. So that's really great. And I'll say, I'm hoping that we can generate that kind of turnout March 6th through the 8th, whenever we put on our spring musical. Because we know how hard
Yes, we
those
do.
kids work, and what they put into it, and how much they care, and just the community effort that goes into putting on a production
Yeah.
of that scale, of getting all the kids where they need to be, and getting sets built, and costumes sewn, and kids fed, and it's
huge.
It's a massive effort. Our kids are incredibly talented, and we really need to pack that auditorium every night for those shows.
I'm just really glad I don't have to go to all 4 shows this year.
You do.
No, I don't.
You're gonna want to, though.
I do.
I may want to, but I don't have to.
The choreography I mean, I think for this show is gonna be, I
Yes.
mean, they're doing so
What
much
is
work.
the show?
It's called Bring It On.
Oh,
Bring It On.
Started.
alright.
The cheerleading, yeah,
It's a
kind of the
tough- it's a tough
cheerleading
show.
musical.
Yeah.
It's, yeah,
And the
bravery.
choreographer is Mr. Green's daughter.
Yes.
Who absolutely loves working with our kids.
Yeah.
And the kids
She
love
does
working
Rabbit
with
Run
her
and,
too.
you know, she's very talented.
And,
She is
and
very
coach,
talented.
our cheer coach, Satire Jones, is also working with the kids.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we should get
Cheer
some new
routines.
recruits. I
Yep.
keep pushing my daughter, I'm like, you're such a cute cheerleader. Get out there and join it. No, I don't want to.
Well, we also had a community action team meeting last week, which that group is growing in strength and core involvement, and it's a great group of people. And then there was also the same night, the Columbus Crossroad, or Crossing Borders exhibit, which was fantastic.
Yeah, it was.
And I know maybe Dr. Engelhardt can talk a little bit about how they interacted with the school during the day. But, you know, and I was showing my wife the program, because you can see it online, although you couldn't see the documentaries unless you wanted to pay for it. I wasn't really gonna pay for it, but you could watch a trailer, and the trailer was pretty cool. But, you can see it all online if you go to the CRIS website, CRIS.com, I think, or .gov, or .org. But yeah, if you wanna talk to,
Yeah, so we, it's a traveling exhibit, art exhibit, that chronicles the experience of people who undergo forced migration. You know, it's done through art, a really creative kind of art design, that's accompanied not only with the visual work of the artist, but also some explanation of the sort of the inspiration behind it, and the artists connected with people who were in that position and kind of drew from their stories to produce their work. The whole exhibit was also accompanied by a documentary that you know, just kind of gave real experience of the people who have undergone you know, being a refugee, forced refugee. We were able to share that with all of our high school kids. We brought kids down through their social studies classes. So we did a little bit of front loading. We got the pieces of the documentary out to the classes ahead of time so that they could view it together and talk about it before coming down and seeing the exhibit. So we did get all of our kids through that. I talked to several kids, and they expressed that they really appreciated the experience, that it was impactful, that it was it sparked some thinking, and it sparked some conversation. So we were pleased to be able to bring that to the community, to be part of that, but also embedded into our program here at Harvey.
It was a very touching exhibit.
some amazing artwork too.
Oh.
It's
And
really-
all of that's being auctioned off in Columbus.
Yes, they're having a gala in April,
Yep.
thinking about going just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
Admission, I heard, is $100.
It's $100 a ticket, yes.
And bidding starts at $500.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm not gonna bid on anything,
There
I just
was
think it'd be
some
fun to
very
go.
impressive artwork
Yeah,
there, though.
for sure.
On Saturday, I went to the, our senior student, Justin Glehow, was, recognized as an Eagle Scout. And Mr. Webster, I know your son, achieved that same distinguished
Yes.
rank. But I'll tell you, I had no idea the work that was involved
Yeah.
to reach that point.
They're big projects, so.
Huge projects.
And it's not easy to be in scouts. It's not something that your peers are
No.
really very supportive of. So
No.
you have to be self-motivated, and you get to be in high school, and there's so many other things going on.
job, sports,
Musicals.
theater, everything,
Yeah,
you know.
so absolute credit to him, so thank you for going.
Yeah, this young man
Sorry, I
stayed
couldn't attend.
very, I know Nate had lots of interests, and
Mhm.
how he did it, I don't know, but Justin stayed very focused, and he's involved in other things at
Yeah.
Harvey too, but, you know, the badges he earned and hiking 300 miles on the Appalachian Trail and some of the other things he accomplished, it was like, what? It was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was a real
It's
big
quite an
deal.
achievement for you.
Well, I mean, and it's not just one project.
No.
I mean, it's
No.
years worth of work
Yeah.
and dedication.
He's been a scout since he was 6.
Yeah. A
And
lot of
there
it.
were times he wanted to give up, and his mom was like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he stuck with it.
The
And
thing
it's-
I like about it too is that more than any other program I'm aware of, it really encourages civic citizenship and that idea of being a good citizen within your community. And you know, when somebody gets to that level, they're gonna find a way to
Yep.
kind of give back to their community, whether it's at a larger level or at least at a local level. So I think there's just a lot good there. So.
Well, your son was kind of genetically programmed to be, you know,
A
outspoken and be in
troublemaker.
front of people, et cetera. Justin, on the other hand, was very, very quiet. And it was also almost like watching our FBLA kids blossom.
Yeah.
That, you know, they can't get up in front of a group like these little 2nd and 6th graders did tonight.
Oh.
But he really came out of his shell.
That's great.
Well, speaking of FBLA. you
Yes,
know,
I was just gonna bring that up, about the luncheon.
Yes, we got the
Yes.
invitations recently for the lunch, which will of course be after they go down and
Right.
wipe up the field at the States. So I hope everyone will, if you've never been to one, I know Kathy, you've been,
I'm gonna go.
it's worth going just to see not only how engaged the students are, but how engaged the Avery folks are.
Yeah.
Because it's as big a deal to them, and maybe even a bigger deal than it is to them. No, it's not bigger, but it's a big deal to them.
It's a big deal to them. I mean, they
It
say it's a
really is.
life-changing thing to them, to be committed to our kids like this.
I'm excited to go and meet with them and see how.
I gotta figure out if I can go.
Yeah, maybe I can, in a morning like this, I'd be able to break away.
Okay, who would like to read the statement in 15.1?
I can read it. Pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22, parentheses G, parentheses 1, the board adjourns to executive session for the purpose of considering employment, discipline of an employee of the school district.
Okay. Yes,
Okay.
we need a second and we need,
Second. We have to vote on it.
Yes.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Are we all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.